Hello everyone, my name is Arun Shinde. I welcome you all in this online lecture. I am going to discuss the paper Oracle 10G SQL and PLSQL. Let's have a look at the syllabus points. The syllabus contains 8 chapters. As you can see, the very first chapter is Introduction and Basic Concepts. In this, we will be discussing 4 points: structure of DBMS, advantages and disadvantages of DBMS, users of DBMS, and database models. Second chapter is about SQL statements and working with tables. In this chapter, we will be discussing types of SQL commands, how to create and insert records into the tables. Along with that, we will be discussing some clauses like where clause, distinct clause, column aliasing, and working with views. The third chapter is about sorting and grouping data in SQL. In this, we will be discussing 2 clauses: order by clause, group by clause with having, substitutional variables using ampersand, double ampersand, define and verify functions. Fourth chapter is about SQL functions. The functions are categorized into 2 groups: single row function, multiple row function. Multiple row function can also be called as group functions. The next chapter is about operators, comparison operators and logical operators are to be discussed in this chapter. Chapter number 6 deals with joining tables and working with subqueries. How to join tables, what are types of join, what are styles of join, and how to write and execute subqueries will be the points which will be covered in this chapter. Chapter 7 consists of security concepts. In this, we will discuss how to create and manage users, how to assign permissions to the users, how to manage permissions with the help of roles, how to create them and how to manage them. The next chapter, that is the last chapter, PLSQL. In this, we are having basic 3 points. First point is the architecture or overview of PLSQL block. Using that PLSQL block, we will be executing some commands on conditional logic, loops, exception handlings. This is the first part. Second, using the PLSQL block, we will be creating triggers. And third one is working with cursors. So all these factors are to be executed using PLSQL block. The complete syllabus can be referenced from the books given here. There are 3 reference books: Oracle 10G SQL, Oracle Database 10G PLSQL programming, and Oracle Database 10G the complete reference. Let us begin with first chapter. Introduction and basic concepts of database management system. In this, first of all, we discuss some basics of database management system. First, what is data? Anything can be data. Example, any name of student, class, person's address, anything, whatever you think could be considered as a data. Second definition says any fact that can be recorded is called data. Either of the definition can be applied. The second definition is a bit technical because whatever data we are going to maintain is to be stored on the storage devices, and that is why it is saying any fact that can be recorded. Example is text, number, speech, videos. the database which can maintain text or numbers were the traditional databases. But nowadays, databases have changed their execution. Along with numbers and text, database can also be used to store speech and videos. So the database which can store speech and videos is called multimedia database, or it is also called as multimedia data. Next is, what is information? When the data has got some meaning, it becomes an information. So meaningful data is called information. What is database? Database is an organized collection of related information. So whenever we are trying to maintain or trying to make a new database, at that time we must know that it should be a collection. That means it should have group of information, and the information should be arranged in some manner. Organizing means arranging the information, and whatever information we have grouped and arranged should be related. That means if you want to prove any component or anything as a database, you need to apply these definitions on that typical concept. For example, student. We can maintain database of a student. So the data that we are maintaining will be comprising of multiple informations related to students. So that becomes a collection. Whatever information we have collected can be organized by any typical field. Let's take an example. If we maintain student information using 4 definitions: roll number, name, class, percent, and we have 100 students information. So what we can maintain is, we can maintain all those 100 students with these 4 informations or data. Now after having 100 students information, it becomes a collection, and that collection can be organized on any one of the fields that we have applied. That means we can arrange that information on roll number or name or class or percent. So organized collection, and the information should be related. What is relation? All the information of student that we have maintained, they might belong to one class, or they might belong to one college or a university. So this is how the information that was organized and collected is related. Okay, so that is the definition of a database. A database is an organized collection of related information. Along with this, there can be multiple definitions of databases. Some might say collection of information is called database, a group of data is called database. You can choose any definition that you want to, but technically this definition is a bit easy to understand and easy to maintain. Next part is, what is DBMS? Actually, Database Management System stands for DBMS. Is a software that allows access to the data contained in a database. When you have a database, that means you have an organized collection of related information. To access the data in the database using a computer, we need a software called Database Management System. Let's elaborate this part. If you want to use computers or you want to use computer hardware, at that time you need to have a software. In simple way, whatever you want to execute in computer system, to execute that part, you need to have a software for that execution. Let's take an example. We have computer hardware, we want to use it. To use it, we need a software called operating system. if you want to perform programming in computers, you need a software called programming language. In the same way, if you have a database and you want to maintain the database in computer, you need a software called database management system. Any database management system software will have three specific goals. First one, defining the database. Second one, constructing the database. And third one, manipulating the database. See, the goals of DBMS are to provide a simple and effective method of defining, constructing and manipulating databases for various applications. That means whatever database you want to create, before creating that database using a DBMS, first the user should define what data he or she is going to store in the database. So first of all, he just has to apply definition on that data. I will explain this typical part. We have considered the example of student before a few minutes. What is the data associated with student? There are not many information or data that can be related with a student or it is associated with a student. To start with, students have roll number, they have name, they have their class, their college, their phone number, their address, their last year percentage, their current year papers. Among these information related to the students, what exact information is to be maintained in the database, first that should be clarified. And that is nothing but defining what data is to be maintained in the database. After defining is done, we need to construct as per the definition. Let's see one by one. First, what is defining? Defining a database involves specifying types of data to store in the database along with detailed description of each type of data. Means what exactly is the data that you want to define for the database, first that should be clearly specified. As I told you, there is much information related to the student. From that information, what exactly are the components to be used by the user? That should be defined. Suppose we choose roll number, name, class, percent. Now, we need to define what that roll number should have. Whether it can have numbers or it can have alphabets or it can have alphanumeric information. That has to be defined. That is nothing but specifying types of data to store in the database. What exactly is the data that we are going to store? First, what data is to be stored? What are the types of data that we need to store? And along with detailed description of each type of data. Detailed description means, suppose you want to save a roll number. To save a roll number, we need some space. So how much space should be allocated for saving a roll number? Is nothing but detailed description of the data and the type. Suppose your class is having 100 students. So to store the number, roll number, we need maximum 3 spaces. So within that 3 space, we can store a roll number with 1 space, 2 space and 3 space. This is what? Defining. Then whatever we have defined should be constructed using a DBMS software. So to construct that part, database management system will offer some commands. So we need to run those commands so that whatever definition we have configured should be created. So constructing the database is the process of storing data itself on some storage medium that is controlled by database management system. Simple. Whatever we have defined, first, after completing the definition, you need to construct that. And to construct, you need to take help of database management systems command. Okay. Now you defined the data, you constructed the data. Now you can see the data that you have created. After viewing the information, if you found that there are some errors in the data that you have entered, we need to correct those errors. So to correct those errors, we need to manipulate the database. Manipulating means correcting or changing or updating or modifying. Manipulating database includes functions such as querying the database. Querying means displaying the content available in the database. To retrieve the specific data, updating the database to reflect changes. This is how a DBMS will provide the goal in order to maintain the database in computerized fashion. Now, let's start our first point for our first chapter, that is structure of database management system. In this, as you can see, there are not many blocks displayed in the diagram. Let's start with the first part, Navy user, casual user, DBA. These are users of database management system, or these are users of database. Don't think that the specific user that I have written there is executing from that side only. So user available here can execute from any of the location. That means Navy user can execute from this point or this point or this point. Just to specify a location, I have given the names accordingly. Whatever user is trying to access the database will try to access the database using certain commands. So those commands will be communicated with the database management system using telecommunication system. Whatever commands will be executed by the user will be transferred to the database management system through a telecom system. Now there are not many types of commands that can be executed in database. That we will cover in the second chapter. But for now, we will focus on one part, DDL. DDL is one of the category of SQL command. It stands for Data Definition Language. This command or this category of commands is executed to create any kind of data in the database. I will repeat the point. Database DDL commands are those commands which are used to create data in the database. If you recollect the definition of database, we have stated an organized collection of related information. Let me clarify this point in a more detail here. When we are saying organized collection in database management system, that organization is arrangement, and that arrangement is table structures. So whatever data we are creating in the database are organized using tables. Get this point clear. Okay. So DDL commands are those commands which allows us to create data. That means any kind of data that we need to create can be created using the commands given by DDL category commands. And to run those commands executed by DDL category, there is a specific component available called DDL compiler. You know the function of a compiler. Get the command, compile it, and give it to the operating system. The same function is performed by this DDL compiler. We will see one by one. Second, users. Here, as you can see, there are three users: Navy user, casual user, and DBA. Actually, there are four users of database management system. First one, Navy user. Second, sophisticated user. Third, specialized user or database administrator. And fourth, application programmer. Okay. So in this diagram, we can see only three: Navy user, casual user, and DBA. Where is application programmer? Actually, application programmers are nothing but software developers who use the database using a programming language. So when they are using a database, they are trying to write certain programming languages or program in language of any type, C, C++, Java, and that program will try to access the database. And you know, when we write a program, to execute that program, we need to compile it. And after compiling, what we get is compiled program. So here you can see compiled user interface and compiled application interface. So these two components shows our last user, application programmer. So anyhow, when the users are trying to access the database, the commands are given to telecom system, and telecom system will pass on that command to database management system. Hope till this point you have got the points clear. Now let's start the discussion with this complete diagram. The very first point is data definition language compiler, that is DDL compiler. The DDL compiler converts data definition statements into set of tables. So whatever commands we will execute in order to create data in our database, those statements will be converted into machine readable format, and that machine readable format will be executed to create tables. These tables contain metadata concerning the database and are in a form that can be used by other components of database management system. I will simply execute the part called metadata. Metadata is nothing but data about data. So whatever data you are storing, the details of that data is called metadata. The second line will be clear after finishing the complete point. So for now, you should understand DDL compiler converts the definition statements into set of tables. That means whenever the user is trying to create any kind of object in the database, that object creation will be done by this DDL compiler. Then, if we look carefully in the diagram, Navy user, telecom system, casual user, telecom system, DBA, telecom system. DDL compiler, all the commands which need to be executed for creating objects of database are assigned to DDL compiler, and they will be given to data manager. Compiled user interface and compiled application interface, that means application programmers who want to use the database using a programming language. That compiled format of program is given to data manager, and any of the query executed by the user apart from compiled format and DDL category command. There are not many categories of command. For now, focus on if the command is given for creating any object, that will be assigned to DDL compiler. If a programmer is trying to use the database, that component will be executed from compiled user interface. Apart from these two factors, if anything else is executing, that will be assigned to query processor. Anyhow, whatever execution that user will try to run, that will be transferred to data manager. That is what we need to understand, and that's our next point, data manager, which is the central component of database management system, simply called database control system. So this data manager can also be called as database control system or data manager as it is. Function of data manager is to convert operations in the user's query coming directly via query processor or indirectly via an application from user's logical view to a physical file system. See, whatever command which are executed by application programmer, they will be available in compiled format as the diagram says here. If a command is executed for creating an object, that object command will be transferred to DDL compiler, who will compile the component. Apart from that, if any other category of command is executed, like select command or update command or alter command, that command will be given to query processor, and that query processor will convert that command into the format understood by data manager. So what is the basic function of data manager? Data manager's basic function is to get the command from the query processor or compiled user interface or DDL compiler.